They called it a conspiracy theory for nearly a decade. They destroyed lives, careers, and reputations to protect. But now the documents are out, and the truth is more explosive than anyone imagined. President Trump just unleashed the Kraken, full declassification of everything. Obama's name is all over it. Hillary's fingerprints are everywhere. And the FBI officials who swore they were protecting America, well, they were really just protecting themselves. What you're about to see is not just vindication, it's evidence of the biggest political crime in American history. The hunters have officially become the hunted, and now there is nowhere left to hide. So stay with me. Now, you probably think your 401k is safe, but it wasn't designed to make you wealthy. It was built to shift retirement costs and to you, leaving your savings exposed to crashes, inflation, and chaos. But Americans are waking up and taking control of real assets like gold. Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands secure their future by converting part of their 401k and tax-advantaged gold into a tax-advantaged gold IRA without penalties or headaches. It's safe, it's simple, and it's smart. Visit nextnewsgold.com to use your free wealth protection kit and discover how to safeguard your savings. Open a qualified account today and receive two 5-ounce Silver America the Beautiful coin, absolutely free. That's nextnewsgold.com, your exit from the danger zone, or call that number on the screen, 877-646-5347. And when you talk to Colin, tell him that I said hello. Now, we have to start this whole segment with our Mexican word of the day. Yes, what is it? Oh, the Mexican word of the day is Kenya. Can you try me for treason if I'm not American? Ooh, yeah, the memes are flying hard. President Obama now officially released a statement. Yeah, because he knows he's on the hot seat and he's going to try anything he can to downplay this. This is his official statement. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee led by then-Chairman Marco Rubio. Yeah, there is Barack Obama's official statement from his office. Now, notice how they ended off by throwing in Marco Rubio. That is their attempt to validate all of their findings. Now, how do we know that Marco Rubio had the correct information? How do we know that Marco Rubio and his committee were not fed basically they were fed all the wrong intelligence reports that were manufactured, as Tulsi Gabbard has revealed. Okay, so spare me, we're gonna lift up Marco Rubio because he's the paragon of virtue here, and he's gonna make sure he's gonna put the bow on this and prove the whole thing is all misinformation from this White House. That's how they're trying to play this thing. Oh, here's another meme. Rob Schneider, the comedian, posted this. When you rig an election still lose, and the winner is about to declassify everything. Yep, that's the face you make. Barack Obama, terrified. Vigilant Fox, Trump just crossed the Rubicon and there is no going back. Inside the Oval Office, cameras rolling, he accused, this is today, huge. He accused Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton of orchestrating the Russia hoax. He then said it flat out. Obama committed treason. But it's what he revealed next that could blow the lid off the deep state. And we have all the documents from what Tulsi told. She's got thousands of additional documents coming. Now, I want to jump into this thread for a second, but I do want to bring up what Don Jr. posted 10 hours ago. Worse than Watergate. Bombshell. The walls are closing in. For the regime media, the only thing lower than their credibility is their pathetic ratings. We're going to get to Don Jr.'s reaction in a second, but first, I think we really need to play what the president said in the Oval Office today. Now, the cameras were rolling for a routine Oval Office meeting with the Philippine President Bongbong Marcos. Trade, international relations were on the agenda until they weren't. One question from the press turned the entire conversation upside down. Listen.
And I read
Gabbard has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective,
who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper. The whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room. Right here, this was the room.
Gabbard has submitted a criminal referral.
And that is only the beginning.
From your
That's when things took a historic turn. The Overton window was about to be shattered. No more implications, no more code words. Trump said directly Barack Obama was guilty of masterminding the Russia hoax and called it what it is in his mind.
It was them too. If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they look. He's guilty. It's not a question. You know, I like to say, let's give it time. It's their guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. If you look at that, those.
And I will personally add, overthrow a duly elected president. But Trump was not done. What came next was a bombshell, a bad day to be an Obama official. He revealed that the National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has been sitting on thousands of never-before-seen documents, records that, according to him, could blow the lid off of the entire Obama-era operation. But you've never seen anything like it. Listen.
Yeah, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming. So President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but you've never seen anything.
His concept, his idea. President Trump drawing a straight line back to the source and preparing the public for what is coming next. But it would not be the Russia hoax without naming another prominent Democrat, you know, the crooked one. President Trump shifted to Hillary Clinton and the Steele dossier, accusing her of bankrolling a report so phony even the media wouldn't touch it.
Report that was, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill. Hillary Clinton and her group, the Democrats, spent $12 million to Christopher Steele to write up a report that was a total fake report. Took 2 years to figure that out, but it came out that it was a total fake report. It was made up fiction. And they used that. Now, the one thing they weren't able to do was to, and probably the only thing I respect about the press in years is the press refused to write it before the election. They refused to put it in. The Steele report was a disaster. All lies, all fabrication, all admitted, and admitted fraud. She paid $12 million, and the Democrats, for that report to a wise guy named Christopher Steele. He wrote a phony report, and they wanted to get that report in before the election. And I'll tell you what, I talk about all the time, the fake news, how bad it is. But in this case, they wouldn't do it. They saw it, they read it, and they said, we don't believe it. And it was only after, substantially, like a month and a half after the election, that it got printed, and it was a big whisper. It was just like a bang of nothing, because the election had ended. If that report had gotten published by the New York Times or somebody, and I respect the Times for maybe only this, because they're crooked as you can be. They're a terrible paper, a crooked, corrupt paper. But for this one moment, they said, this is bullshit, we can't put this in. But he also got it from
President Trump not holding back. Continuing on with the vigilant Fox thread, it's all connected. Trump closed the loop by bringing it back to 2020 and the aftermath. What started in the Oval Office under Obama, he said, didn't end with the Mueller report. It bled into the next election, reshaped the country, and opened the floodgates.
And the 2020, never has a thing like this happened in the history of our country. And by the way, it morphed into the 2020 race. And the 2020 race was rigged, and it was a rigged election. And because it was rigged, we have millions of people in our country. We have we had inflation, we solved the inflation problem. But millions and millions of people came into our country because of that. And people that shouldn't have been, people from gangs and from jails and from mental institutions, people that we don't want in our country, and people that we're getting out, dangerous people. Never has a...
It all started with Barack Obama in the Oval Office that day. President Trump not holding back. This is huge development in the Oval Office today. Now let's take a listen to what Donald Trump Jr. had to say on his program. Listen.
There's such a leap.
It's also a media scandal. For literally years and years, the media spewed nonsense about collusion, lies about the Steele dossier, and endless testimony hearings. And witch hunts? Well, here's a quick trip down memory lane. Check this one out. I'm sure you'll remember these fonts.
Understand just how much trouble the president is in.
To believe that the president isn't compromised requires such a leap of faith.
I think we have all the proof. We have a scandal that's arguably worse than Watergate.
The U.S. president possibly working for the Russians, possibly an unwitting pawn.
Now, here's what the president said when asked if he's a secret Russian agent.
The president did not directly answer the question.
Why not just say no if that's the answer?
There is tons of proof of potential collusion.
We have dramatic evidence of collusion.
How is it not collusion? How is all of that not collusion?
A political hurricane is out there at sea for him. We'll call it Hurricane Vladimir, if you will.
Donald Trump knows the noose is tightening.
The noose is tightening.
The noose is tightening, if you will.
The noose is tightening around the president.
The noose is tightening. And I thought that the noose is tightening and that people might go to jail.
He knows he and POTUS are going to prison.
Well, I think they're all going to end up together in prison, and maybe that's a good thing.
Oh, my God.
The walls appear to be closing in on the president.
The investigative walls are closing in.
He feels the walls closing in.
The walls are closed.
Trump resigns, quote, once Mueller closes in on him and the family.
It's also a media scandal.
So Don Jr. posting that montage on his X account, and you could easily now take all those sound bites and apply them to Barack Obama. Mark Meadows says Obama, Brennan, Clapper, Susan Rice et al., they leaked to the press. Then they investigated their own leak, which they knew was false. You guys heard of something called the wrap-up smear? Well, that's exactly what this was. Listen.
Is that
we all got it right. There were a very small number of people that wanted to get it right. You two were leading the effort. Here we are. Mark Meadows, what does this mean?
Well, I think it's a big day, but I think the other thing is that there's going to be all kinds of postmortems to suggest, well, what we knew back then, you were willing to cover, Sean, actually wasn't the case. And so what do we know? We know that candidate Donald Trump and candidate Hillary Clinton did differently. We also know that Clapper, Brennan, and Comey met outside the workplace. We know that according to text messages. And we also know that in August of 2016, they were actually meeting at the White House. And so does this come as a surprise to Jim, you, or me? No, not at all. But here's what should be told tonight is they need to go after all the people that they shared in the legacy media that covered this up, including Adam Schiff.
That's a great point. Jim Jordan, I'll go to you. To me, this grand conspiracy investigation that Kash Patel has now opened a number of weeks ago, I think a lot of this is going to come down to whether or not what we refer to as the deep state, and there is one, and whether or not there were people within our government knowingly lying to the American people, spreading propaganda for the purposes of tipping an election to one side over the other. You can say, for example, the Russia hoax would be one example for 2016, but also the double standard with top secret classified information with Hillary. Or, of course, the Russian disinformation dossier that Hillary Clinton paid for. Then you go to 2020, the laptop from hell, 51 former intel agents that knew nothing about that laptop. Boy, they all sounded like experts. looks like Russian interference. None of them looked at it. And then you could take it through lawfare in 2024. They went after Donald Trump with a vengeance so they could call him a convict, mugshot him. They wanted to put him in jail. They never thought he would be able to beat the system. But this is a 10-year period of time that we're talking about here.
Right. And it all started back in 2016. And it wasn't just to keep him from winning the election in 2016. It was to undermine his presidency after he had already won. I want you to think of 3 dates in the interim between Election Day and Inauguration Day back in 2016, 2017. December 9th, Obama calls a meeting in the White House. All the intelligence community is there, plus the Justice Department. You got Lynch, you got Comey, you got Clapper, you got Brennan. They're all there. Obama says, we're not going to go with the intelligence community assessment. We're going to put that on hold. And they put together a new one. 3.5 weeks later, January 3rd, Chuck Schumer's on one of the Sunday shows, and he said, if you mess with the intelligence community, talking to President-elect Donald Trump, if you mess with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. 3 days later, Sean. 3 days later, January 6th at Trump Tower, the intelligence community, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, go up there to give President Trump what he believes is the defensive briefing all incoming presidents get. So he's expecting just the normal briefing. Instead, it's a setup. They go up there and brief him, and then they tell him about the dossier that they already know is false. And then it gets leaked to the press, and thereby giving it credibility when the press reports that Jim Comey, FBI director, briefed Donald Trump on the Russian dossier. It was all garbage, but it was all designed to undermine. This is where it began. The whole weaponization of government began here. And to your first point, Sean, you're right. We had figured this out several years ago, and we're covering this, and the only thing we had wrong was it was worse than we. It's the only thing we get wrong when we dig into these investigations. It's always worse than we thought.
Well, now the truth is coming to light. And that's why they wanted to stop Tulsi Gabbard from ever being DNI. They knew that she would uncover all this. Senator Rand Paul has entered the chat. CIA used foreign spies to target President Trump. Listen.
Right, to rig the election.
I mean, I know we're hypothesizing here and speculating, but what potentially could Obama or any of the ringleaders of this, what could they be charged with? What could they potentially be, Brennan, how could they be held accountable, Clapper included, Senator Rand Paul?
You know, there were stories even at the time. I remember in the transition to the Trump presidency, I remember people talking about it, that the Obama administration was spreading things around to make sure that they couldn't be destroyed by the Trump administration. What they were spreading around was misinformation. You remember the guy that did the Steele dossier? All of a sudden, he's flying across the ocean and meeting secretly with John McCain, who breathlessly believed everything this spy was telling him. He was basically duped by a spy with misinformation from the Clinton campaign. McCain then comes running back and dutifully tells the Intelligence Committee what he was being given. So the Democrats give the Intelligence Committee and community the Steele dossier. The Steele dossier is then given back to McCain, who then gives it back to the intelligence agency. So it all starts in one place, goes in a circle, and McCain was basically duped into being a part of ginning up this big hoax. But the one principle that's important above and beyond who gets prosecuted, even above and beyond Donald Trump, is we cannot allow our intelligence agencies to go after U.S. citizens, particularly the CIA. I think what they did in this instance is the head of the CIA, John Brennan, I believe interacted with the head of intelligence in England and other countries to spy on U.S. citizens. I believe that those meetings in a bar, random meetings in a bar where they're recording Trump employees, I don't think those. I think those were ordered by the CIA, but they knew it was illegal to do themselves, so they got British intelligence or Australian intelligence or other countries' intelligence to do their dirty work.
We brought this up yesterday when we covered this topic about the Five Eyes intelligence community. That's how the CIA can get around these, the law, get around the Constitution. I mean, they just simply ask the foreign intelligence to spy on Americans. Donald Trump Jr. posting this 6 hours ago. Obama and his deep state goons like Brennan knew the entire time the Russia hoax was BS. He's quote tweeting Molly Hemingway of The Federalist. When top officials push back on aspects of the hoax due to the lack of evidence for claims, they're overruled, dismissed, and defamed by Brennan. Here's more from Molly Hemingway. Records show Brennan overruled his experts in order to push the false Russia collusion narrative and harm Trump. From Professor M.J. Cleveland and me. Here's the headline. Top intelligence officials contradicted Brennan. No intelligence to support key Russia hoax claim. And this, of course, reinforces what Tulsi Gabbard has now just released. Now, let's take a flashback here. ALX posting this 24 hours ago. Here's James Clapper back in 2019 with Anderson Cooper on CNN. And this is basic. Listen carefully, the language here. He says that we are part of the group tasked by President Obama. So he's pointing the finger at Barack Obama. It goes right. The buck stops at Barack Obama. Listen.
This a month, and certainly those of us that she named, John Brennan and Jim Comey and I, part of the group that were tasked by President Obama to put together all the reporting we had on the Russian interference, and which we President Obama directly and personally confronted Putin about the Russian interference in September and did not accept at face value Putin's protestations. John Brennan directly did the same thing with his counterpart. On October 7th of 16, we put out a statement. I say we, Jay Johnson, then Secretary of Homeland Security, and I put out a statement on the pretty forthright one about warning of the Russian interference in our election. This is a month before the election, which unfortunately got drowned out of the Access Hollywood tape revelation. On December 29th, the administration, issued a series of sanctions. PNG, 35 Russian operatives, closed 2 dachas, et cetera. And then, of course, on January 6th, we issued our intelligence community assessment, documentation interference, in which we had very high confidence in the evidence that we presented to then President-elect Trump at Trump Tower. And certainly
all the way to the top, the head of the snake, Barack Obama. Here's John Brennan talking about Tulsi Gabbard being President Trump's top director of national intelligence. He was terrified someone not owned by the swamp would be in that position. Because now Brennan's crimes are all being exposed, all of them. Listen to this guy. Flashback.
It has taken.
Director Brennan, your thoughts about Tulsi Gabbard?
Well, I think you and Tom Nichols have done a great job just underscoring all the concerns that people have about this appointment. Clearly, Tulsi Gabbard has taken actions and made statements over the past several years that really raise serious questions about her common sense, her judgment, as well as her political sympathies. Cozying up to Putin as well as to meeting with Bashar Assad, I think really does show that she doesn't have the type of perspective that is needed for somebody who's going to head up these 18 intelligence agencies. And as Tom Nichols said, she doesn't have any qualifications. The Director of National Intelligence, that's a really serious position and a very complex and complicated one that requires somebody who actually has an understanding of the intelligence community. It's like an orchestra conductor of all the different agencies and departments that are involved in the intelligence process. And I don't think she understands even the instruments that are involved in this orchestra, nor has she had any experience at the strategic level of running and leading a large, complex organization. And the Director of National Intelligence is, according to legislation, the president's principal intelligence advisor, the person who is responsible for making sure that the president's daily brief is put together in a very sound and forthright manner. The person puts together the budget and the priorities of the intelligence community. So I know that this appointment is sending shockwaves here in the United States, but also around the globe in terms of, is this really who Donald Trump is going to entrust with the care and the leadership of the intelligence community?
Yeah, it's sending shockwaves, not around the world. It's sending shockwaves to your cabal of criminals. Okay? All right, here's Glenn Beck's take. Attorney Mr. D. DeMia says it sounds like Tulsi Gabbard released enough evidence to indict Brennan, Clapper, and maybe even Obama over the Russia hoax. Let's hear. He's got Mike Davis on the phone. Listen.
Is there enough here to indict Obama or Brennan or Clapper or any of these people?
Well, based upon what Tulsi Gabbard has said, it sounds like it. Now, remember, there's the issue of presidential immunity for the sitting president of the United States.
Right.
So any indictment of President Obama would have to go through a presidential immunity analysis to make sure that doing as his core constitutional responsibilities, he's absolutely immune. What he's doing in his official capacity, separate from core constitutional responsibilities, he's presumptively immune. But here's the problem. What President Obama did after he left office, when he continued to conspire after he left office, it's an ongoing conspiracy. If he continued to cover it up, if he continued to conspire, he could not claim presidential immunity.
So, Mike, there are people that say, in fact, the New York Times said, this is not a story because what the president was talking about was digital conspiracy to hack into the voting record.
Okay, I want to pause this here for a second because this has been brought up. The fact that Barack Obama may have presidential immunity. Remember, the Supreme Court ruled that Donald Trump has presidential immunity. And we all celebrated that fact. But does that extend to Barack Obama during his time in the Oval Office? Well, as you heard Mike Davis just say, if these actions extended outside of the Oval Office, the conspiracy continued after Barack Obama left office, then he doesn't have presidential immunity. At that time, now, he is just a regular American citizen who is participating in a conspiracy against a sitting president. So after Barack Obama left office, if he continued to cooperate and coordinate and direct any of these players behind the scenes, or even have any communications with them regarding it, that extends the statute of limitations and moves his presidential immunity. Okay? I want to make that point clear because I think Glenn kind of just glossed over it here because what Mike said was very important. Let's just back just a hair here.
He continued to conspire after he left office. It's an ongoing conspiracy. If he continued to cover it up, if he continued to conspire, he could not claim presidential immunity.
So, Mike, the people that say, in fact, the New York Times said, this is not a story because what the president was talking about was digital conspiracy to hack into the voting records, not a propaganda war. And that's what he had changed. Instead of focusing on the digital, he instead went to a propaganda war. And that makes all of this nonsense.
No, the Democrats' argument is nonsense. They went after President Trump for the non-crime of objecting to a presidential election, which is allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887 and the First Amendment. We don't see Democrats objecting to Republican presidential wins in 1968, 2000, 2004, and 2016. Al Gore, John Kerry, and Hillary Clinton aren't in prison for objecting, right? And so they went after Trump for the non-crime of objecting to a presidential election. What they did was a real crime. They politicized and weaponized intel agencies and law enforcement to take out a presidential candidate, to take out the president of the United States, take out a former president of the United States. They lied to a FISA court. They continue to lie to Congress as late as 2002 in congressional testimony when there was allegations of perjury to cover up this ongoing criminal conspiracy. Continue to lie to this day. So these are real crimes. I can't think of a bigger scandal in American history than politicizing and weaponizing a political party, including their leader in the White House, politicizing and weaponizing intel agencies and law enforcement to take out a political opponent and a sitting president and a former president. That's what you do in third world Marxist hellholes.
Address critics of people who say this.
Okay, let's continue here. In our research, Here's Laura Loomer, 13 hours ago. This is interesting. The swamp is still active. Listen to this. Former Obama CIA Director John Brennan's Director of Operations, Tom Rakusin, is currently working at the Department of Defense under administration as a senior advisor to the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Steve Feinberg. In another example of a shocking failure that threatens to undermine the Trump administration, Tom Rakusin, a former CIA official who worked for the CIA as John Brennan's Director of Operations when Brennan was working with Obama, Clapper, and Comey to fabricate the intelligence surrounding the Russia collusion hoax to stage a coup against President Trump, is now somehow working under the second Trump administration in a senior role at the Department of Defense. So she's tagging the key players. I have a feeling that man's not going to be working much longer for any of those administration officials. Here we have an email 16 hours ago. Mila Joy posting, email from John Brennan confirms the 51 intelligence agents signed the infamous letter solely to give Biden the ability to lie to Americans in order to be elected. The 51 need to be prosecuted. They stole 2020. Here's the email. It is from John Brennan, and it is to Michael Morrell. Michael, add my name to the list. Good initiative. Thanks for adding me to sign on. And there's a series of replies here, and you can see the last sentence. Trying to give the campaign, particularly during the debate on Thursday, talking points to push back on Trump on this. So clearly, that entire letter, the 51 intelligence agents, was all designed to the election. Nothing new. Nobody ever said the Russians hacked the election, except, of course, they all said the Russians hacked the election. I mean, that's all we heard for 4 straight years. And now we have this from John Solomon, something called Arctic Frost, now been officially referred to FBI Director Cash and AG Pam Bondi for a criminal investigation and prosecution. Senator Chuck Grassley and Senator Ron Johnson, via a whistleblower, confirm a criminal conspiracy.
Senator Johnson, Senator Grassley just sent this to me a little bit ago while we're on air. It's a major development. You're taking a look at a letter right there that was just sent to the FBI Director Kash Patel and the Attorney General Pam Bondi. What does it say? It says that Congress has obtained evidence that shows that the Biden White House was directly involved in trying to help start Jackson's investigation on the January 6th probe against President Trump. Specifically, that the White House counsel's office secretly obtained President Trump's and Vice President Mike Pence's former phones and giving them to the prosecutors, basically sicking the Justice Department on his future competitor, his future rival in the 2024 election, so that they could look for dirt for possible crimes. There's a lot more coming in. There's a lot of other evidence as well of the White House involvement. Remember, 2 years ago, we were the first news agency, right here, Real America's Voice, Just the News, to report that a White House counsel was directly involved with this investigation. Now, more details, including imagine this, you're the Democrat president and you go get the old Republican's phone for your prior president and send it to the Justice Department. That's what Senators Johnson and Grassley were able to confirm tonight. It's in that letter. Keep an eye on justthenews.com. We're going to get you up to speed on that all throughout the night. A lot more development.
This is not going away. It is Barack Obama's worst nightmare. Tulsi exposing it all. Josh Dunlap writing, Hillary Clinton may finally face prison. Trump orders full declassification. President Trump had ordered the immediate release of all FBI files related to Crossfire Hurricane, the infamous Russia collusion investigation. This means that John Durham's report confirms in August 2016, Director John Brennan briefed Obama, Biden, and Clinton on Clinton's plan to falsely link Trump to Russia. They knew, they approved, they watched it unfold. Hillary Clinton's campaign engineered political hoax in American history. Listen.
And next, sir, we have a presidential memorandum for your attention. This memorandum requires the immediate declassification of all FBI files relating to the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. This was obviously one of the instances of the weaponization of law enforcement powers of prosecution against you and others. We believe that it's long past time for the American people to have a full and complete understanding of what exactly is in those files.
Which gives the media the right to go in and check it. You probably won't bother because you're not going to like what you see. But this was total weaponization. It's a disgrace. Should never happen in this country. But now you'll be able to see for yourselves, all declassified. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All declassified?
Yes, sir.
Everything?
The FBI file with there's a classified annex, but other than that, this we'll put everything in the public eye.
Is anybody going to look? What about you? You going to look? And frankly, the FBI should be ashamed of themselves, and so should the Department of Justice, and so should Biden.
So I think we're going to have to do some digging once they finally release all of that information. President Trump signing that presidential memorandum. We've got this. John Solomon, 48 hours ago, says he has confirmed the DOJ and FBI has been secretly building a massive conspiracy case against the deep state.
Before, and I think next week, over the next 10 days, Ace, who's been wondering, where's all that accountability? They're going to get some big surprises over the next week concerning where the conspiracy began a few weeks before Crossfire Hurricane was over. And when it ended, all the way in 2024, when they were still trying to pursue Donald Trump to keep him from winning the presidency, there's a big case that's been built by the Justice Department and the FBI. It's been masked by a lot of this infighting and drama and soap opera stuff. But the truth of the matter is, MAGA base Americans are going to be happy when they see where this is all heading in the next few weeks. Kash Patel is going nowhere. I hope Dan Bongino isn't going anywhere, but I do think he's going to take some time over the weekend to think that through.
You know, what I think is interesting here, if you, like John Solomon brought up a good point, the fact that it went all the way to 2024, them trying to stop President Trump from winning. And if you remember what happened in Butler, that sloped roof, oh, we can't put anyone up there, it's a sloped roof. And you have a shooter. This goes all. I think this whole thing goes all the way up to that moment where they realized that they had no other chance of stopping Trump other than a cold-blooded assassination. They attempted to stop him at every single turn. I mean, we still don't know anything about Crooks, the shooter. We know nothing. We heard about the phones and bank accounts overseas, that he was training in the same location as intelligence or law enforcement or DHS. I mean, in my mind, all these moments lead right up to that, because that was their Hail Mary. And he was protected by God in that moment in Butler for such time as this. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say, yeah, I think that this goes all the way back to Barack Obama and the deep state intelligence cabal that attempted to stop him all the way back in 2016. Then through 2020, then through 2024, and bring it right up to Butler. That's what I believe. Trump's right. It's now or never on holding people accountable. Nick Sortor, 5 hours ago, President Trump calls for all conspirators in the Russiagate hoax to be locked up. Here's what President Trump wrote on Truth Social. This makes Watergate look like small potatoes. Victor Davis Hanson, senior fellow, Hoover Institution. They are caught. Irrefutable evidence. They should all go to jail or it will never stop. Nobody will believe the evidence, which is overwhelming. Make America great again. First part is a quote. This makes Watergate look like small potatoes. Then Trump says, declaratively, they're caught. They should all go to jail or it will never stop. Now, here's David Brody posting this 23 hours ago, an interview with Speaker Mike Johnson. He says, Speaker Johnson tells me he has no concern at all bringing former President Barack Obama in for a congressional deposition or subpoena. If it's uncomfortable for him, he shouldn't have been involved. No concern at all. Wow. Listen.
In those, what Tulsi Gabbard has done, chief, in essence, declassifying hundreds of documents that seem to suggest that manufactured intelligence was at play here with the Obama administration regarding this Russian collusion hoax. I've heard Stephen Miller call it a seditious conspiracy. I've heard Tulsi Gabbard call it a treasonous conspiracy. You're a constitutional guy. What do you see in this exactly? How do you term it?
Well, I don't know how to summarize it by way of description in a snappy phrase, but I will tell you it is deeply problematic. And before I became Speaker of the House, I served on the House Judiciary Committee, which had jurisdiction over a lot of this. And we knew what was happening. We knew intuitively. We were gathering the evidence as we were investigating all of this ourselves. We knew the Russia collusion thing was a hoax. They used it as a basis to attack the president mercilessly. I served on his impeachment defense teams twice. That would be unheard of in history, that a president would be impeached twice on such spurless claims. In those processes, as we were preparing for those defenses, as we were investigating with our oversight responsibility in judiciary, we recognized that the people who are being called out now were involved in a scheme. We knew that it was a shameless, false set of accusations. And yet, they perpetuated the lie on the American people, and they looked right into the camera and just lied, clearly. And they knew what they were up to the whole time. So there must be accountability for that. Because what it does ultimately, the greatest threat of all this is not just what they've done to President Trump as an individual, it's what they're doing to the institutions, even broader than that. They have diminished the people's faith in our system of justice itself, in the institution of the Department of Justice, in the institution of the FBI. And those are critical functions that are played in a constitutional republic. And so we're in the process of restoring trust and rebuilding the people's belief in our system of justice itself. And it's an extraordinary challenge that was brought about because people were involved in a sinister plot. And so there must be accountability.
You say there must be accountability. The DOJ will work on the criminal aspect of this. What's the role of the House here specifically? I mean, people want to see subpoenas. They want to see depositions. They want to see there be Brennan, Clapper, potentially the former president of the United States. Are you willing to go down that route? Because a lot of people want to see some of these folks questioned under oath.
Of course. Look, I think we have a responsibility to follow the truth where it leads and to do it in an unbiased fashion, to do effectively the opposite of what that other team did. They're engaged in a partisan political plot to take down their foe and the other party. We need to be about the rule of law in order to the chaos and searching out the truth, because the American people are owed those answers. So we have some very bright, very capable, very strong leaders at Judiciary and Oversight, Chairman Jim Jordan, Chairman Jamie Comer, and the other committees that would be involved. And I do expect that whether there's a special counsel appointed, which some are suggesting, and or in conjunction with the House investigations, that we will get the answers, and there will be accountability to the extent that we're able to do that, referring people to the DOJ for prosecution. And any other measure that is appropriate as we begin to uncover more of the facts.
Does it get tricky at all with the former president, President Obama, looking at what his role in this is and bringing him in for some sort of deposition, potential subpoena?
Well, listen, we have no concern about that. If it's uncomfortable for him, he shouldn't have been involved in overseeing this, which is what it appears to us has happened. There's a lot of allegations on the table. Our job is to go and follow each of those trails and to find out the truth. Those are serious allegations with very serious implications, but we're going to have very serious people working on it, and we will get the answers.
So, subpoenaing Obama before Congress is not off the table. Oh, yeah, baby. Let's see it. I want to see it. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So this matters because we're witnessing the collapse of the biggest lie ever sold to the American people. For years, they weaponized our intelligence agencies against a sitting president while enriching themselves and protecting their own power. They called us all crazy for questioning their narrative. They censored us, they canceled us, they tried to break us, but we never gave up. And now, the receipts are in black and white. Obama calling the shots, Hillary orchestrating the frame-up, Comey, Clapper, and Biden, all of them knee-deep in treason. This isn't just about Trump anymore. It's about whether we live in a republic or a banana republic run by criminals who think they're untouchable. So here's my question. Should Obama be the first former president prosecuted for treason? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's continue the conversation. And while you're fired up, make sure you check out our merch shop. It's linked down below. Wear your patriotism proudly. You can support our investigation into President Otto Penn, or support Alligator Alcatraz, or pick your favorite member of the administration in our American Badass series and trigger a liberal today at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.